If you are in a place where it is comfortable and appropriate for you to do so, please close your eyes and begin to take some slow, long, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and light entering your body and mind. With every exhale, just let go and let gravity take away all tension from your body and your mind, along with anything else that you do not want. Inhaling light and peace, and exhaling, letting go. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain, in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. We recognize that this is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it easily burns away everything that is not like itself, leaving us safe and pure. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves as a God and Goddess, Mother and Father. We also invite into this space the presence of our teachers, our angels, our guides. We dedicate the time that we spend together today to each other and to them. And we ask that we be guided and led as we walk upon the way, becoming healthier, happier, more peaceful, more prosperous, more gracious, and more loving people. Thank you very much. Together, if it's appropriate for you to do so out loud, we say, "Blessed be." So today we are talking about sphere number 4 on the Hermetic Tree of Life, which is always fun on a Thursday because it's sacred to Jupiter. But we're not talking so much today about the planet as much, but more about the God name. So the God name for sphere number 4 is El. E-L. Now, El has a very long history in several of the Semitic languages, and it's probably something that predates Hebrew as we understand it. El means God, and El can mean many gods, it can mean one God, but oftentimes El, even in the pre-Hebrew understanding of the word, can mean the God. The God. And that is usually an indicator that there was a chief of all the gods. And that's what El represents. Now, when we say the chief of the gods or the head of the gods, to an ancient people, that would be like the head of an army maybe, or the head of a tribe. To a modern person, it might even be like the head of a corporation. If you look at the choir of angels as being the corporate body, and the L would be the chairman of the board, maybe. But that's still a very almost superstitious way of looking at it. El, as the God, as the so-called head of the gods, represents unity. It represents oneness. It represents that there is unity in diversity. It represents that the many are one. Just like you have many different cells in your body, but you have a singular body, right? There are many different states in the country of the United States, but they make one country. There are many different grains of sand, but it makes one beach. Many different drops of water makes one ocean, etc. And so El represents the oneness that is God. And so when you think in terms of sphere number 4, that's the idea of expansion and also order. It represents both order and expansion. And in time, in linear time, order comes first and then comes expansion. If you start expanding before there's order, then it just fizzles away. Right? So something has to have those cornerstones, those 4 cornerstones of structure, and then you can expand on it. As such, the more unified you are as a person, the easier you can expand. So you can look at all of these things on the tree of life, all of these divine names as depicting the universal divinity, absolutely. But you can also take it very personally. Each one of those God names means something for you. And for you, you could think in terms of you personally, each of us personally could think in terms of El as being togetherness within our own minds. When you can get your mind together, when you can get yourself together, then you can expand. And it's the idea of a fragmented mind that's the problem in this world. Even just real practically, like I've got my relationships, and then I've got my career, and then I've got my spiritual practice, and then I've got my money, then I've got my property, then I've got my problems, then I've got my history, then I've got my therapy, then I've got my this, then I've got my that. And you can see, I have a different personality that I play when I'm maybe a parent, and I have a different personality that I play when I'm an executive. I have a different personality that I play when I'm playing sports, or I have a different personality when I'm going out on the town, right? So I have different parts of myself, and that's all fine and good. There's nothing wrong with that happening, except for that we start to lose track of the fact that there aren't differences, that those are just different expressions of one consciousness. And so El is the idea of the God, of the oneness of God, being part of us too. That if we can get it together, literally, if we can get it together, then we can expand. And so the more together our mind is, the more that we can defragment our mind, the more power that we have for good in the world, and the more power that we have to expand. So if we think in terms of what some of the things that sphere number 4 represents in life, sphere number 4 definitely can represent financial prosperity. And it also can represent legal wins, the law being on our side. Number 4 represents the law. It also represents, therefore, justice. Divine justice. It's not like you can go on sphere number 4 and just say, well, I'm going to cheat, but I want the law to favor me. No, this is divine justice. So if you're in the right on sphere number 4, then the law will prevail in your favor. The number 4 also represents, like I said, structure and foundations of structure, those cornerstones of structure, and thusly also expansion. A lot of times people will forget that prosperity starts on number 4 and ends on number 4. But true prosperity can't happen for us unless we get it together, unless we get ourselves together. So El represents unity of the gods. And so inside your mind, there are many gods. Inside your mind, there are many gods. Like I said, there's the God of your career, there's the God of your love life, there's the God of your sex life, there's the God of your car, there's the God of your body, there's the God of disease, there's the God of healing, there's the God of all kinds of things. And without El, without the God, without that unity, there's only chaos. And it seems like the different gods within you are warring at all times. Gurdjieff used to call this something else. He didn't call it gods. He would say it's as if you are the master of this huge manor, but you are stuck in the basement and you don't even realize that you're just stuck in the basement down there. You're locked away and you don't even realize that you have this whole manor that is your home, but all the servants in your manor are running amok because they don't have a master. They don't have anybody giving them direction. And so El is this idea of you coming together and reclaiming your masterhood so that you can come out of the basement and start taking charge again of your home so that you can have that prosperity. Remember, El, number 4, also represents royalty, political royalty. Which is the planet? Well, it's Jupiter. Well, what's Jupiter in Greek mythology? That's Zeus. Zeus was the head. Zeus was the god, was the one that was in charge of all the other gods up on Mount Olympus, right? So that was Zeus's role to play. So El in your life is your oversoul, is your superego, if you will, is that part of you that is in charge of all the other demigods within your personality. And if we don't get it together, then those demigods are running amok and our lives are in chaos at all times. So that is a huge, powerful meditation for any of us to think in terms of El. And you can just use El as a mantra and just sit there in your mind and repeat that word in your mind over and over and over again. Because what that does for you is it starts to call upon, on the Akashic records, this idea of oneness that's been around, like I said, way before the Hebrew religion, way before the ancient Hebrews. Very ancient idea of unity, of the unity of purpose of all the gods. So as you on the microcosm are getting yourself together by just sitting and contemplating and repeating that name silently in your mind, and again, you don't even have to do this within the context of the angelic silence. You don't have to have a lot of ritual involved with it. You can just do this as a regular meditation. Anytime you feel like you got to get yourself together, anytime you feel like there's chaos in your life, you can just relax yourself, calm your mind, close your eyes, and start repeating the word El silently over and over again in your mind as you start to feel and see every aspect of your mind coming together and unifying. And like I said, that's the microcosm of what's actually the truth already on the macrocosm. Each of these spheres on the tree of life, it's easy to think of them as subordinate to the spheres above them, but that's not really how it works. It's that they are simultaneous. They're all sort of simultaneous, and they each have their own divine function to fulfill. And one of the functions that El fulfills, sphere number 4 fulfills, is unity, togetherness, and then ultimately mercy. So mercy on the tree of life represents the solving of problems. It represents the end of conflict. It represents the positive outcome where there seemed to be no help available. And one of the reasons why that happens simultaneously is because when there's division and divisiveness in the mind, chaos will ensue. But when there's unity, when there's a unity of mind, then there's a unity of purpose. And where there's a unity of purpose, there is only order. And so divine order is the key. It's been stated that order is heaven's first law. And you can think of each of these spheres on the tree of life as an aspect of heaven. And heaven simply means a realm where everything is permanently perfect. It's not a place, it's a state of being. For us, what that means is when we are aware of our oneness, when you have an awareness that all is one, heaven is just the natural experience that you have. Perfection is all that you experience. And so if people are always thinking that heaven is this place where they have to like go and there's pearly gates and there's a guardian, it's probably St. Peter, and he's going to throw you out if you haven't been a good person. And that's not the truth. That's a myth. That's an interesting myth, but it's not the truth. The truth is that heaven is not a place that you go to when you die. Heaven is a place in your mind. It's an awareness of that which is one. So all you have to do is be aware that you have a singularity, a oneness within your mind, and that there's a oneness within the universe. And that awareness in and of itself is the entrance to that realm that they call heaven. Hell, on the other hand, is a kind of the normal state of being in this world. Hell is what our ego mind makes of the present moment. So the ego mind is all about separation and wanting to keep everybody and everything separate. The ego mind will look at this tree of life and say, oh, this is separate from that, is separate from that, is separate from that, is separate from that. Whereas spirit looks at the tree of life and says, look at how unified that is. Look at all of those beautiful fruits on that tree that are just blossoming forth from a singular source. So it's very, very different. And one costs you the vision of the other. When you're seeing from the eyes of the ego, you're only seeing that which is separate. But when you're seeing from the eyes of spirit, you're only seeing that which is El, which is one. And that's what it means when they say the God. That's what El means, as the God. From an esoteric perspective, it's not just one more dude up in the sky that is maybe more powerful than everybody else and so then has won the victory and is now the God. That's not what that means. Esoterically speaking, the reason why it's the God is because there's a oneness of purpose. There's a unity of purpose. There's only oneness. And when we have oneness, we have El. Where we have El, we have heaven. Okay. Now, think in terms of El being a suffix of angels, right? So when it's, the healing of God, the light of God, all of those things, Raphael, Ariel, all of those things, that's what they are depicting. Those angels are being depicted as functions of the mind of God, functions of the divine mind. And that's why we say angels don't work for you personally, they work for God, meaning that they are messengers of that oneness. They are expressions of that oneness. But so are you. And that's why in Psalm magic, your name is Israel. In Psalm magic, your name is Israel. So you are the child of God. That's what Israel means. You are the expression of God. Is the feminine part of you. We look at that as Isis. Ra is the masculine part of you. We look at that as Ra. And that's who you are. You are the divine child, both masculine and feminine, the divine expression of God. And God didn't make you separate. God didn't make you chaotic. God creates you in the moment as a perfect expression of itself with divine free will. So you can use that power that you are granted any way you want to. But on this fourth sphere, on the tree of life, you're being called to find a unified vision. So thinking in terms of oneness. So I invite you to just play with that concept this week. And even if you have time in your daily meditations, to just sit with that silent mantra of El and see how you can pull yourself together quite literally. And notice the difference, not only in the way you feel, but in the way things seem to turn out for you. Because once we pull ourselves together and we have a unified mind, really there's nothing that can stop us. There's nothing that can stand in our way, because that's God's will. And God's will can't be thwarted, but it can be delayed in our experience, because that is our divine birthright, to have freedom, to have free will. So if we decide and we choose to think thoughts that are separate and chaotic, God can't say no, because God already gave us free will. We're not automatons. We can do whatever we desire. But that doesn't mean that we can change God's will, but we can delay it. We can fall asleep to it. We can reject it. But God's will for you is unity. God's will for you is a singularity of purpose. And ultimately that means that God's will for you is success and happiness. And that's available to you. But you have to be willing and ready to pull yourself together quite literally. And that's what the mystery of El is. So sit with that this week and see if you don't notice some shifts in your experience as you start to pull all of your forces together into a singular, unified oneness of purpose. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Until next time, blessed be.